Standing before the entry of the cave, standing before the wooden doors of Chartres Cathedral, standing before the doors of the time, what waits beyond? The Alpha, the Omega, the ending, the beginning, a labyrinth. We stand paused through the loops, through the path. We walk our life. We walk life, reality, death, renewal, walking the walk, talking the talk. So we proceed, shaking off a cloak of blackness, COVID, pandemic, collapse of life as we know it, and still here we stand. What lies beyond? A choice, step forward or retreat. May the choice we make be filled with love and compassion and wisdom for ourselves, for each other, and all of life. May we be in relationship and transform to renew. Mama, Ua Noa.
Thank you, Apila. Thank you, Ruth. Welcome, everyone, to this penultimate session before we arrive in Chartres next month. All year, we've been preparing for pilgrimage. We have about 70 to 80 of us now that have come together to make this pilgrimage to Chartres as we contemplate the regeneration of love through the pathway of apology and reconciliation and healing. I've been on a very short pilgrimage of my own over the last several days, and I've been in the general proximity of Yosemite, and I want to bring in the mother trees of Yosemite today. Fire has approached the Mariposa Grove in Yosemite, which contains the old growth, what's left of the primordial forest. And there's one particular tree there called the grizzly giant that has stood for over 3,000 years. And because of the human dereliction of responsibilities to the larger ecosystem, what they call the Washburn fire has broken out and is lapping up against these ancient trees. So for the last 24, 36 hours, I've been feeling the mother trees threatened and somehow needing now to be nurtured by all of us. So I've imagined my water, I'm 98% water, flowing to the mother trees. So I want to dedicate this session to the sequoias, these ancient trees threatened by human irresponsibility, and how we can at this moment nurture them with all the love and all the caring that we can at this moment. Because it's that tonality that will empower us as we prepare to make pilgrimage to the sacred site of Chartres. I'll have a bit more to say about this in the pilgrimage, but right now, as we always do, we invite Lynn Bell, our astrologer who's been with the Chartres Academy since its founding in July of 2006, to share with us her astrological report. We're also going to be hearing from Kala Perkins, who's a cosmologist par excellence, on her vision of Venus as a planet and as an etheric essence in our solar system. So it'll be a very exciting program. But Lynn, start us off. Welcome from Paris. And I turn the podium over to you.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, and it's such a time. I mean, first, I want to say, many of you know we're stepping into a full moon in a few days on the 13th. And this full moon activates Pluto. The moon will be within orb of a conjunction of Pluto. And this always intensifies, or it's hard to imagine that things are going to intensify any more than they already have been. There's so much going on in the world. And one of the things that's very wonderful about this time is that Venus is coming in the next few days into a square with Neptune. And Neptune, the oceanic principle, or the principle of release, of loss, of sacrifice, of dream, of magic. Venus, Neptune calls all of us to step over the boundaries that limit the love we have for all beings. So around the time of the full moon, Venus will also be squared Neptune. And I think this is calling on us to multiply the radiance of our heart, to whether that is through empathy, whether it is through noticing, as Jim just called us forward, the great beings of the world, our beings, the people close to us, and the great sentient beings of the forest, of the planet, who have stayed with us for so long. And this process is very strong over the next 3 to 4 days. And there's so much been going on. But one of the things I want to take you back to before we look forward a tiny bit is that in May, on May 16th, there was an eclipse, a full moon eclipse. So, and that eclipse was conjunct Algol. We talked about this, which is the represents Medusa's head. And one of the things we've been seeing in the past few weeks, eclipses have a very long shadow, at least 6 weeks, often quite a bit longer. But one of the things we've been seeing is that the heads of states are disappearing. We've started to see those people who are running things who are maybe not worthy of running, have been suddenly asked to leave, whether it's in Sri Lanka or in the UK. And this is part of the process of Pluto in Capricorn, which shows the shadow side of authority and shows the shadow side of our tendency to give power away to others who are not worthy of holding that authority or that power over our own lives. So there is a kind of reaction going on around that. Now, so just to be clear, we're in this process. So I'm talking about losing heads, but also opening our heart. And so when there's an initiatory process. The patron saint of Paris is Saint Denis, and Saint Denis has his head cut off, and he picks it up and walks with it, and he gets to just above Montmartre, behind Montmartre, and this is where a chapel is founded. That's the legend in any case. So this idea of what is cut through and what is picked up and taken to form a whole new consciousness. We are very much in a process like this. And so stepping forward with this metaphor, at the very end of July, there is a triple conjunction of 31st of July or August 1st, depending, or 2nd, depending on where you are, of Uranus, Mars, and the North Node. And Uranus and Mars has to do with cutting through things. So there's a very, very powerful energy around this time that can be an energy of breaking through to new consciousness. It can also be something we have no imagination about yet. Uranus is very, very hard to predict, but there's a stepping up of things at the end of the month. So I think that this coming week, opening our hearts, which Venus always, Aphrodite always calls us to do, is extremely important in between these two stages of the process that are going to lead us into our coming together. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Lynn. I loved what you said about one of the aspects of the Uranus-Venus alignment is that it empowers us to move beyond the boundaries that prevent us from loving all beings. And it's so extraordinary. That's what I've been feeling around the sequoias. I've been feeling that the boundaries between the human and the tree, between myself and herself, have been expanding, and so that my water is giving her water, and the little fire people that are so frantically trying to save because they know what's at stake. And so thank you so much for bringing this in. I look forward to seeing you again in Chartres.
Yeah, it will be great. It will be great to gather together. I'm so looking forward to it.
And just to develop this theme for a moment, everyone, from what Lynn is saying, you know, if you think about the last several years, we've been bounded by COVID. We've been bounded by lockdown, by social distancing, by isolation. And now you can just feel that we need to transcend those boundaries and come back together. And that's why we have made the decision, even given the turbulence of the world, and COVID is still out there, as everyone knows, and there's geostrategic turbulence in Europe. We've still made the decision to make pilgrimage, because sometimes pilgrims have to just dedicate themselves with such strong intent that no matter what's happening, they're going to go. And it's that clarity of purpose and that strength of intent that empowers the pilgrimage itself to bring about the results that the pilgrim seeks by simply going. So I want to start that and to say that I know many of you on the call are going with us. For those that haven't made that decision, I would urge you to, even at this last hour, this is about the last week or so that one can make these kinds of decisions to travel to another country. I have a strong feeling that what we're going to do in Chartres this time will be possibly the most important thing we've ever done at this place, because of the fragility of the world situation, because of the fragility of our own psyches and souls after the traumas that we have undergone over these last several years, and to dedicate ourselves under the aegis of Venus, under the aegis of Aphrodite, to take upon what is necessary to regenerate love as we come together in the spirit of complete transparency, complete self-disclosure, with a willingness to apologize for how we've been inappropriate to each other, to request what we need to be apologized for, to apologize what we're doing to Mother Nature, and to do it at the time of the feast of the Mother Mary on the 15th of August, where she ascended into the heavens as the queen of both heaven and earth. And at the time when they bring out the Black Madonna, it's going to be just an extraordinary time. And to be there in person, heart to heart, body to body, word to word, all in the same physical space, is going to be, I think, at a really extraordinary moment. And if we do it and we breathe together through our hearts, I believe we'll, like a pebble dropped into a vast pond, send out a ripple that, even if for a microsecond, will soothe a troubled world. So that's my invitation on the eve of our departure to Chartres. We have a special discount that Banafsheh will talk about in a moment. We'll put the link in the chat box. But I just want to, from my heart to everybody's heart, this is a moment where pilgrimage to Chartres may be the most important thing that you do, not only for this year, but for a very long time. We all need to bow before the Mother now. That's what's true. So in that spirit, I turn it over to my distinguished Persian colleague, Banafsheh Sayad, who will introduce our speaker after making some remarks of her own. Banafsheh.
Thank you, Jim, and greetings to everyone. So good to be with you today, tonight, wherever you are, whatever time zone you're in. I was also very touched by what Lynn said about stepping over the boundaries that limit our love for all beings. This is what is bringing us together in Chard this year. And under the guidance of Venus Aphrodite, we will be guided into how to step into that, how to step beyond the boundaries that limit our love. And like Jim said, what an amazing time to be in Chard when when what is being celebrated is this marriage of matter and light, exemplified, symbolized by the ascension, by the assumption of Mary, representing all matter, coming into union with the light, becoming one. And we get to experience this unity, open ourselves through breathing together, moving together, singing together, and becoming transparent in front of one another and holding ourselves and holding each other exactly as we are, and allowing the apology to come forth, allowing what we need to apologize for and what the apology that we need. So we invite you, all of us who are coming, who will be in Chard together in little over a month now. We are inviting all of us to come in touch with what do we need to apologize for, and what apology is still owed to us. So coming already with that, if you haven't reflected on what that is, what those are, to come together and put that on the altar of our gathering and share deeply with one another and become transparent and hold one another. And together, breathe together to step beyond the boundaries that have limited our love. For that is what is needed today. That is what our world needs. That's what the Great Mother is guiding us into. So with that, and I will put the link in the chat, Jim said we have, as Jim said, we have a special that runs through Tuesday, the 12th, that gives you $200 off the fee, the tuition. So you can register now and until then, if you want to save $200. But now I want to turn the ground to our dear Kala Perkins. We're so excited to have Kala here today with us, talking about Venus, talking about the planet Venus. Kala is a cosmologist par excellence, as Jim said. She blends the creative arts and psychology with astrophysics and environmental science. Kala has a master's in environmental science, bioethics, and a master's of divinity and interfaith chaplaincy. She's currently completing her doctorate in astrobioethics and teaches meditation, mindfulness, and astronomy to both students in the schools and to adults at the Science, Philosophy, and Humanities Nexus. Kala, tell us, share with us your wisdom.
So it's an honor to be here. Thank you all so much. I'm touched by the wisdom that you've all offered and feeling the trees that Jim mentioned. We lost our trees, the big ones here in the Bay Area, the big park, ancient trees, to a fire last year. So I'm praying for those trees in the Sierras. And so I am going to take you on a sojourn of Venus today, and I will go to my screen share, and then hopefully whatever your thoughts are, we can share. And I will minimize us. All right. Let's see. There. All right. I think this is better. There we go. Okay. So Venus and the elegance of fire, her form and formulas. We have her beautiful rendition here, and this is the planet Venus. We have many images of Venus from various telescopes that we will be exploring in just a few moments. This is a radar image taken from the Pioneer and the Magellan Spacecraft. So Venus in our solar system, I'm going to minimize that's better. So Venus in our solar system, it's 6th grade, I know, but we need to understand just our sun, Mercury, Venus, the Earth, Mars, and then our big planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And this is our solar system, but we actually have found now more than 5,000 other solar systems in the universe, which are in our galaxy only. So we understand that there are literally countless solar systems, stars with other planets going around them. These are 11 of the newest solar systems. These are some very similar to the Earth, the Kepler systems. These are the planets of our solar system and the planets of their solar system. And many of those planets are also in the habitable zone, meaning that they could hold liquid water. So I am wanting to shift some of these things here, but that's all right. We'll go back over here. Okay, so Venus, the probe, Venera, was the first probe that was sent by the USSR in the 1970s and the 1980s, the early 1980s. Only 4 telescopes, spacecraft, have ever returned images from Venus, the surface of the world next door. And it's not easy because it's so hot. The first images that they took, the spacecraft plunged through the atmosphere, took about 2 images and melted. That was the story. And it sent those images, it was from Russia, it sent those images back, and Jodrell Banks Radio Telescope in England got those images and tapped on Russia's shoulder and said, hey, look what we got, and gave them back to Russia, which was very amazing. So the 4 Soviet Venera probes captured the only images we have of the surface of Venus. These are 2 of those images, and it's a dry, cracked surface. It's more than 465 degrees centigrade on the surface of Venus. So Magellan Spacecraft, I'm wondering if I can shift this maybe down here. That's better. So the Magellan spacecraft mapped the surface of Venus 32 years ago using radar. Magellan is the 5th US trip, on its 5th US trip to Venus, launched from the space shuttle May 4th, 1989, on a mission to map the surface of the solar system's hottest planet. The spacecraft reached Earth's cloudy sister 15 months later on August 10th, 1990, 30 years ago. Magellan was named for the Portuguese explorer Fernando Magellan, the first person to navigate the globe, and had 64 million miles to go to reach Venus and take the pictures that it did. It mapped Venus in radar, projecting radar to the surface, and hundreds of overlapping images were transmitted back to the Earth. Okay, so Parker Solar Probe captured its first images of Venus's surface in visible light in February 2022. So these are new images that we have of Venus. The Parker probe took the images of the surface of Venus by penetrating through the clouds, again with radar. Venus is smothered in thick clouds on its surface, and it's usually shrouded from sight. But these 2 recent flybys, Parker used its wide field imager, or WHISPER, to image the entire night side in wavelengths of visible spectrum light. That's the light that we see. These images combine into a video, reveal a faint glow from the surface that shows distinct features like continental regions, plains, and plateaus. A luminous halo of oxygen in the atmosphere can also be seen surrounding the planet. So let's look at Venus's profile. A day is longer than a year. It takes Venus 243 Earth days to rotate once, while it goes around the sun in 224 Earth days. Venus is hotter than Mercury, despite it being further from the sun, because of its thick carbon dioxide atmosphere trapping the heat. Unlike the other planets in our solar system, Venus spins clockwise on its axis. All the other planets spin anti-clockwise. And what happened was, in its early development, Venus was hit by some other body, maybe a comet or an asteroid, and turned it upside down. Uranus is the only other planet in our solar system that orbits in an unusual way on its side. So Venus is the second brightest natural object in the night sky, next to Sirius. It has 90 times the atmospheric pressure of the Earth, the same as Earth under a kilometer of water. Venus is named, of course, we know, for the Roman goddess of love and beauty, because it was the brightest star in the night sky. So this is an image of Venus transiting the sun. This little black dot that we see right here, that's Venus going across the face of the sun relative to our perspective. Since the 2012 transit, which I saw at Mount Wilson in Los Angeles through many, many telescopes with people worshiping Venus and the sun. It was beautiful to watch. The next transit will be in 2017. So Venus is like Earth's twin in many ways. It's almost the same size and mass as the Earth. It's made of roughly the same elements. And if you stood on the surface of Venus, you'd notice the gravity is pretty much the same. So in the ancient past, the sun was dimmer and cooler than it is now, cool enough that Venus was much more similar to Earth. And as we probe, it seems that it may have had rivers and lakes and oceans, if you can imagine that, beneath the surface of those thick clouds. And with liquid water, there could have been life on those in those oceans and on the surface. So it's about a third closer to the sun than the Earth. It gets roughly double the solar radiation. The sun has been slowly heating up over millions and billions of years. And at some point, the planet reached a tipping point where the water on the surface of Venus completely evaporated into the atmosphere, and there are rains of sulfuric acid. The water vapor is a powerful greenhouse gas, and this increased the temperature to a runaway greenhouse, where the water vapor, the oxygen and hydrogen decoupled, and the oxygen vanished into space. So without oxygen, without hydrogen, you can't have oxygen, only carbon dioxide. So the night side of Venus, this is an image in infrared light. Venus was captured by infrared light, showing a surprising amount of structure in its night side. The vertical orange terminator strip between night and day is so wide because light is so diffused by Venus's thick atmosphere. Also known as the Venus Climate Orbiter, Akatsuki has camera, and that's from Japan, a Japanese Venusian satellite. It has cameras and instruments that investigate unknown elements about the planet, including whether volcanoes are still active, whether lightning occurs in the dense atmosphere, and why wind speeds greatly exceed the planet's rotation. So we have from radar an image of Ma'at Mons. Yes, it is called Ma'at. We will explore this. So lava flows extend for hundreds of kilometers across the fractured plains of Venus's in the foreground. Ma'at Mons, it is a volcano, the central image rising 5 kilometers above the surrounding terrain and 8 kilometers from the mean terrain of Venus. So there are tremendous formations on the surface of Venus. Ma'at Mons was named for the Egyptian goddess of truth and justice. So astronomers, and this is very recent, when Banafsheh asked me to speak about Venus, I was very excited. And when I went to the recent American Astronomical Society meeting, the first plenary that opened, and this was just last month, was on Venus, because astronomers have just detected biosignatures of the gas phosphine in the atmosphere of Venus. Astronomers using the James Maxwell telescope and ALMA, the telescope meaning the soul in Spanish, from South America and Chile, have detected the gas phosphine in the clouds of Venus. In Earth, our atmosphere, this gas is uniquely associated with anthropogenic activity or microbial presence. So we think there must be some form of life that's generated this phosphine on the surface of Venus. It is a minor gas, 20 out of every billion molecules, but they've considered other sources of the phosphine by lightning or volcanoes or meteors, and it doesn't offer enough that phosphine. So they say if this is not from life or a sign of life, then our understanding of rocky planets is severely lacking. If there is indeed life in the Venusian clouds, the team believes that it will be in an aerial form, existing only in Venus' temperate cloud deck, between 48 and 60 kilometers above the surface, far above the boiling volcanic surface. A long time ago, Venus is thought to have had oceans and been habitable like the Earth. This is what they have deduced. As Venus became less hospitable, life would have had to adapt, and they could now be in this narrow envelope of the atmosphere where they can still survive. This could show that even a planet at the edge of the habitable zone could have an atmosphere with a local aerial habitable envelope. The reason phosphine is special is that without life, it's very difficult to make phosphine on rocky planets. Earth has been the only terrestrial planet where we found phosphine because there is life here. And when we speak about life, there could be life that, as we do not know it, in the subtle fields, of course, in the minefields, but we're talking about the physical life as we know it here at this level. And of course, Venus, it seems all the planets can be living beings like our Earth, but we're talking about from our current scientific point of view what life is. So active plumes were just found to form a ring of fire on Venus. It surprised the planetary researchers, and that was just this month. So we're looking at the leading edge of the research into what Venus is about. Over 100 large corona on Venus fall into two main groups: those that have formed active plumes and are currently still active and molten, and those that have cooled. So this image we see here on the right, the little white dots are cooled plumes, and the red ones are still active volcanoes. Venus is alive. Every corona structure has a specific signature that indicates what's going on beneath it. So, okay, and then back to Ma'at and the future here of Venus. All the features on Venus are named for women, with only 3 exceptions. If you look carefully at this map, we can see Astera and Planitia and many of the goddesses. Phoebe is there. So how did this happen? In 1991, the public was invited to name features on Venus. This was a public information release, press release, March 8th, 1991, from Jet Propulsion Lab and NASA. Scientists of the Magellan Project, in association with the US Geological Survey, are inviting the public to propose names of notable women for the many impact craters and large volcanic vents being discovered on Venus by the Magellan Spacecraft imaging radar. We want everyone, especially students, to share in the adventure of discovery. From Magellan scientist Dr. Steve Sanders. He said the impact craters on Venus are some of the most beautiful features in the solar system. They form somewhat randomly in time and space when an asteroid or very large comet collides with Venus' surface. The flower-like symmetry of impact craters evidences the enormous energy of these infrequent events. A modest 20-mile diameter crater represents more energy than is contained in all the arsenals on Earth. Beauty triumphs in power. The names sent to the Magellan Project offices at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory were compiled for the Working Group for Planetary System Nomenclature, a committee of the International Astronomical Union. The IAU gives final approval to names for celestial bodies. And we see here down in the corner, this is the convening of the committee, of course. It has been led by many women recently over the last 10, 20 years. So this is a brief list of geological features on Venus. Just to give you an idea, there are many. The sidereal valleys are named after river goddesses and words for the planet Venus. Akshab, the Mayan name for Venus. Algen, Talish river deity. Albiz, a Tuvan river deity. It goes on, and it's so amazing. Dogon, Bayara, the Dogon word for the planet. Uday on Venus are dunes named after desert goddesses, Alozah and Manat, Arabian desert goddesses. The Greek goddess of law, Adrestia, is named after one of the terrains. So, and the East Slavian goddess Dolia, is the good fate goddess, is also one of the terrain. So this is from Wikipedia. Anyone can go there and you can find all the amazing, beautiful names of the deities of the earth that we have called Venus and the goddesses for names on Venus. So what is the future of research on Venus? The Hubble Space Telescope has many images of Venus, and the James Webb, which we just sent up, will take more in the future. The Parker Solar Probe's recent success have inspired other missions to turn their instruments as they pass Venus. Last June, NASA announced they would pursue 2 new Venus missions, Da Vinci and Veritas, aimed to launch in 2028 and 2030. The European Space Agency has also created a new mission called Envision to go in the early 2030s. These missions will help image and sample Venus's atmosphere, as well as remap the surface at higher resolution with infrared wavelengths. This information will help scientists determine the surface mineral makeup and better understand our sister planet. So those of you who may not know, this lotus pattern is literally formed by the orbits of Venus and the Earth. It has a Fibonacci sequence of 3, 5, 8, and 13. Every time the Earth creates 8 revolutions around the sun, the same time as Venus creates 13 revolutions. This amazing flower, this beautiful, beautiful geometry is literally created in space. It's like the geometry, the blossom of geometry is being uttered out into space by the dialogue, the geometric rotational dialogue of Venus and the Earth. And of course, we have Chartres, beautiful lotus here up on the top. So this is the last transit of Venus. We need to go back here. Okay, Venus in radar and Venus transiting the sun. And here we have this beautiful idea of Venus herself, ourselves. We are her utterances. We are her beauty, her precious identity, the sun in our heart, the souls within the sun. And there is a beautiful mythology about the woman clothed with the sun as Venus, who abides in the sun, in that radiance of the sun, and in each of our hearts. Venus, of course, is the earth's soul in mythology. So I have added here near our end the Crab Nebula, Supernova, Pulsar, and Remnant, because we are in Cancer now. And the Crab Nebula is in, it was the first supernova that we actually saw in visible light, I believe in around the 1400s. It is left a tiny little pulsing heartbeat in the center of this beautiful cloud nebula that sends out little heartbeat pulsations into our world. So we are in Cancer now, as our astrologer said, and we go now to our conclusion, the phases of the planet Venus. And we know that this is how Galileo understood that there is indeed change in the heavenly spheres, because Venus is undergoing these cycles of the phases, just like the phases of the moon relative to us. So I will conclude here and bring back all of us and open my screen. There we go.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kala. Woo.
My joy. Thank you.
How much would you say the Earth is on its way to becoming like Venus?
This is a very powerful and important question. And of course, it's to a large degree, it's up to us as far as when this happens, and the idea of how can we sequester the excess carbon dioxide that we as the Anthropocene are putting into the atmosphere. There are ways to do that. Up in north of Norway, they're actually trying to sequester the carbon dioxide and anchor it in the rocks underneath the northern sea like that, because it's carbon and it can go back to being rocks. We've pulled it out of these ancient rocks. We're throwing the dinosaurs out into space. But Earth should not become like that for many billions of years yet, if it's following its natural cycle and not imposed on by our abuse of nature and destruction of our atmosphere. In about 5 billion years, or 3 to 5 billion years, this will be a natural process, where humanity will be what we will be, if we will be living in the subtle ethers of the mind, who knows, or be souls on another world. I don't know. These are all things in the great unknown, or the universe knows perhaps these things, but that we be solicitous about our atmosphere and how we're treating the Earth is, of course, the question.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you again.
Thank you,
Lynn. I'm wondering if you have any comments.
Well, there was a lot I didn't know. And, I spend a lot of time with Venus as an astrologer. And of course, I knew about this. It was reminded me of Velikovsky's work, who was a Russian astrophysicist who was considered a crank back in the 60s. And my father loved him. And he's the first person who said Venus was just not like the other planets. Something happened here. Something happened to Venus. Was she captured? So there's this idea. I loved something you said, Kala, about Venus and Uranus both not spinning in the same direction as other planets, which is, I think, what Velikovsky used for his theory. But that idea, they have a relationship in mythology, of course. They come in to break the order. They come into, in some ways, on a mythological level, there's a stasis or a system that's stuck and keeps life from really flourishing, and both planets change that in some ways.
Interesting, very interesting. So they think it's from collisions. Uranus orbits on its side with the northern pole facing the sun.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, it's fascinating and Venus is completely upside down.
Right. So they represent energies
The
that
pole
like,
relative to
and-
us.
and both planets in some ways, the way they're interpreted symbolically is they represent energies that come into our life where we have no control over what's happening. They might turn things upside down. That's Uranus. And Venus, of course, is usually interpreted that way through the arrows that strike us, of which we are helpless to do anything in our response. We cannot refuse or resist that energy. And when you talk about her fiery nature, there is something about taking that in. There's a whole world there, but how do we get there?
Yes, yeah. And it's just a new understanding that we found it is so volcanically active.
Right.
It's been volcanically active in the past, and now it's still very fiery and volcanically active. And the fire of, if we're looking mythologically, the fire of spirit, the fire of the heart.
Mhm.
And I say that solicitously with Jim talking about the fire approaching the
Oh,
trees.
yeah, of course.
Yeah, in Yosemite, and I put them in the fire of love. Yeah, fire is interesting because everything came from fire. Our solar system, our planet, it was formed in these incredible volcanic churning fiery balls that was the sun's nebula as it was forming. And we know that the chain of fire, the mountains all the way from Canada all the way down to the bottom of Chile is this part of the ring of fire of volcanoes, and the ring of fire around the Pacific Ocean, that our planet, it's alive because of this fiery core that's spinning, the molten core that's creating the magnetic field around the Earth that allows us to keep the atmosphere and to have the solar wind bounce off the atmosphere, because it's a living molten core of iron that creates this magnet. So we're living in a magnet. And what is the fire? Electromagnetism, electricity and magnetism. We are fire. But what levels, what stages, what frequencies, what aspects of fire are healthful, and what are destructive, and how do these dialogue and interact and live together to generate this incredible edge of the dance of life? This is brilliant, and it is the art of life. Kriya is fire, creation, creator, creator, and creations. Kriya is the alchemy of fire. Yes.
Beautiful. And there is that idea that Venus is she's obviously in Western, in Greek mythology, she's not represented as fiery, but she's a life for everything comes alive in her presence. And I think she's talked about as warm. So there's that idea that Venus, when Venus is warm rather than hot, everything comes into being. And when she gets hot, maybe it gets too hot to handle.
That's love. That's love and life. Yeah.
So this striving for bringing the water and the fire together, this cooling and the heat, the hotness, the yin and the yang.
I'll be a little bit naughty and tell you that, shockingly enough, water is also fire. It's hydrogen and oxygen, which are two gases. By magic, they come together. What is it? One hydrogen and the oxygen with oxygen, the eight of oxygen, the one of hydrogen come together, and we get water. And our body is, of course, as Jim said, mostly water. Life lives on water, but the water is made of this same alchemy of fire. It's awesome. It's beautiful and it's brilliant.
Jim, would you like to make any comments?
Well, Kala, I didn't know till this instant that water and fire are different manifestations of basically the same chemical interactions. I mean, and you just think of the four elements, earth, air, fire, and water. And I bet you in the end, they're all one chemical dance of similarities, just taking different forms as life just manifests. And so thank you for that. And I'm also very intrigued with the number 5 and the pentagon.
Mm.
And one of the things that I've been enraptured by over the last several months is breathing, and that the optimal breathing for human beings is a 5.5 second in breath, 5.5 second out breath for about 5 breaths per minute. That brings in about 5 liters of oxygen, carbon dioxide into our system. So one of the things that, you know, we're thinking of is playing with the 5 breathing in honor of the pentagon of Venus and Aphrodite while we're there to create coherence. Because it's without coherence, you can't really generate love or regenerate love. So I really appreciated that slide on the exquisite artistry of the orbit
Yes.
of Venus. I mean, just think about that, everyone. Here she's upside down. She's going around the sun, but in such an exquisite way that she's forming a perfect 5-pointed star. It's remarkable.
It's
Remarkable. And Lynn, you may have some comments on this. You can come back in.
Jim, it's with the Earth. That star is a relationship between the orbits of Venus and the Earth. It goes through the Fibonacci cycle from 3 to 5 to 8 to 13, and it keeps going. So this lotus is the relation between the orbits of Venus and the Earth, forming this incessant lotus.
Yeah. It's a very, in the astrological world, there's an astrologer named Ariel Gutman, and she's done a lot of work. The orbits formed by the retrogrades of the apparent retrogrades of Venus. So the moment where Venus disappears from view, or we might see it through the transit that Kala told us about. And those orbits of retrograde disappearing, becoming an evening and morning star, that's what we're seeing. But it indicates a kind of fundamental harmony within the solar system. And Venus's orbit is one of the most circular. It's one of the most perfect in terms of the sun, like Jupiter, Venus and Jupiter have the most perfect, almost circular orbits. And the Mayan calendar was built all around multiple Venus cycles repeating with the Earth, and a lot of the patterns in the art reflect that. So as Kala said, the Fibonacci series, and we, from our tiny perspective, that 5-pointed star are the 5 retrograde stations of Venus, where she changes her relationship to the Earth and the sun. Yeah. So
beautiful.
5 is really significant also in terms of Venus and the Earth and science. There's a really interesting dialogue there.
the apple.
Yeah.
The famous apple that you cut in half and revealed a 5 in this. Remember that it's what Pythagoras, that's the story of Pythagoreans, is they showed an apple to each other to show.
Lynn, say more about that. Lynn, say more about that.
Well, when you cut an apple, not vertically down, but when you cut it halfway through, there's a star inside, a 5-pointed star.
Yes, yes.
So everybody can try this at home today if you have an apple. And it is the revelation of that sacred geometry, which is seen throughout matter, which just resonates. And so that's the story, is that you would show that apple half to show you are an initiate in the sacred mysteries of geometry.
Amazing.
The
Amazing.
apple again, and Eve and Venus, and yeah.
Well, just imagine everyone, if we came to Chartres and we did that 5.5 breathing
Yeah.
in honor of the Pentagon and Aphrodite for 7 days together in different permutations, and Ruth, the music was playing with the five in terms of octaves and chants, because whether it's the Om Mani Padme Hum or the Hail Mary in Latin, it's all built around the 5.5 breathing in and breathing out, and it's extraordinary. That's why we have to be together, everyone, to breathe together.
There's one other thing just to say about the five-pointed star is
Please.
It's a little bit, if you know the images in Chinese medicine of the 5 elements, there's a cycle of creation and a cycle of destruction. So it depends how we spin that energy of the 5, what manifests in the universe. And I think Venus is Aphrodite is the key to this. And Kala's been brilliant.
And you know something, as I'm recalling the acoustic flux of our universe from the cosmic microwave background that we have, there's like a sine wave, and Mark Whittle has turned this all into sound, into music, and he said the universe itself is like a concert hall, and the music of the universe is like it's a third and a fifth. It's in music. So this is inherent in the fabric of our universe, these physics. And what you were saying, Jim, exactly, that's the standard model of physics that we found, that everything, the whole thing goes back to one thing. The greatest metaphysics is inherent in the physics.
Yes.
Pure electromagnetism and gravity, and then they're looking for where do electromagnetism and gravity unite, and that was Einstein's dream, how to unite all the forces of physics back to understand the pure being, the integrity of all being in this diversity of play. Turingalila in Sanskrit, time and play and love. How does it all unfold from the unity to the duality to the infinity?
Beautiful, beautiful. Kala, thank you. Lynn, thank you. You've enriched my soul, and you've enriched the souls of everybody on the call today. So I just want to thank you. Both of them are, of course, going to be in Chartres. All 4 of us that you're seeing right now are going to be in Chartres. And I just urge you to go into your heart and quest for the strength to make pilgrimage to that sacred place. Just imagine 7 days of breathing together at the cadence of 5 and creating a star, with the realization, as Lynn just said, that Pentagon can take many shapes and forms. The US Department of Defense headquarters is a pentagon, and Venus is a pentagon as she orbits the star. So all these possibilities are open to us, and we need to come together in coherence. And I want to bless everyone. I want to bring back in the sequoias that are threatened in this moment. Let us share our water at this moment. Manavshay, you want to close us out?
Yes, and as Kate Genevieve says, as all of you who've been to Chard know, that the 5-pointed star is a very important geometric pattern in the cathedral. So this is what we will be blessed with, to be inhaling this kind of energy and exhaling what can benefit all of us. But since this is our last call before we will come together in Chard, I was just wondering, just for a few minutes, if there are any questions about the actual pilgrimage that people might have. You can put your questions in the chat or raise your hand. Just for a few seconds. Let's see if there are any questions.
Or if anyone has a quick question about anything I might offer from our sharing. And Jim, you are radiant with love from Yosemite and from your own breathing heart.
So there is a question from Liz Carafa asking if we are doing any meals together or is everything on our own. We actually have this a tradition where we do have meals together. Students can take out different faculty out to lunch or dinner. Meals with muses, right, Jim?
Yeah, the Meals with the Muses is one of the great, elegant moments in Chartres with the French cafes and the languorous long evenings going out with various faculty. And it's a beautiful, beautiful part of our pilgrimage together.
Yeah, so but small groups so that everyone gets to really, come have intimate conversations. So a small group with one of the faculty, and on any of the days. And then we have
Claire Milna asked the question about the exact site. It's in southern Yosemite. It's called the Mariposa Grove. So you can locate it on Google Maps with precision. And that's where the Washburn fire is threatening the mother trees.
Raquel. We will find out for you where you can have where you can get a COVID test in Chartres. And Kate Genevieve, Raquel, was that your question? Did I answer you? And Kate Genevieve has a question. Georg, can we find a way to have her ask her question? She has her hand raised.
Let me see.
Hello.
can-
Oh, great.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear your
Oh,
beautiful voice.
thank you so much. Well, I'm actually in Chartres, sitting in the garden of St. Yves, having not got the memo about the date change, particularly.
Oh, I think she's rejoining as panelist.
Hi. Okay, there we go. So good to see you. I went down to the mother tree at Chartres and to say goodbye to Keola, and the presence of you all was really with me. I felt such gratitude for this Chartrian community. And I wanted to share that on the 12th of August, the night before you all arrive and meet together, there is the peak of the Perseid meteor shower. So it is a night of shooting stars that are visible to the naked eye. And you'll be able to see these little white milky streaks across the sky. This seems so auspicious. I really wanted to share it with you.
Ooh, thank you so much. It's so wonderful to see you in Chartres.
It's so good to be here. I hope that many people make the journey and then it goes well.
Barbara, you're asking what is a typical day in Chard. So we will be starting our mornings in the cathedral early in the morning before the cathedral opens to the public. And we will be sitting, or first we will chant and we will move, but also just go to any place in the cathedral that we feel resonance and just breathe in silence. So that's how we're starting our mornings. Then we also have the dream circle that you, if you wish to share any of your dreams. After that, we have lecture, we have discourse and sharing, and then lunch. And in the afternoons, we have singing or movement. We visit, some of the afternoons, we again visit the cathedral. And in the evenings, we have one visit to the crypt one of the nights, another visit to the labyrinth on another night. So the mornings and evenings are very much about immersing ourselves in the cathedral. Do you want to add anything, Jim? Did I miss anything?
No, that's the basic structure and the meta theme under the aegis of Venus is how do we, after several years now of COVID and lockdown and isolation and social distancing, where we've been forced into an antisocial modality of being, how do we come together in person in that sacred space and regenerate love through apologizing, through reconciling, and through healing and breathing together and being together and eating together and going down into the crypt together and walking the labyrinth together, all while we breathe together as one before the great mother whose feast day on the 15th we celebrate with the entire town of Chartres. You know, you've seen in Europe where they parade the icons through the streets, and then they end up in the cathedral and they have this huge mass, and then they bring out this Black Madonna that's been sequestered for the last 52 weeks since last year. They bring her out for only one week, right at this moment of the Assumption of Mary. So that's when we're going to be there. And it's going to be a very, very profound time of consecration and reconnection and dedication for what now must be done to embody love in a more powerful way, given the fragility of our world. Banafshe, why don't you give us our benediction?
Yes, and I want to add that we will put the general program on the course page soon. So you can take a look. And someone asked about where can you find the recordings of past calls? Yes, of course you can go to the YouTube channel, but all of the links to all of the calls are on the Venus Rising page that I put in the chat for you. So let's close. I'm going to invite you to close with together with me with a dedication to the living water of love. آب حیات عشق, the fountain of youth, the source of all being, the elixir of immortality that renews all things, the water that grants us eternal life and is cure for all disease. May it rejuvenate our endangered trees abundantly. The spring of this water is found in the depths of darkness, and the way to it is surrender. As long as there's discord inside ourselves, we will witness discord outside. So رو سینه را چون سینه ها هفت آب شو از کینه ها وانگه شراب عشق را پیمانه شو. So as Rumi says, go wash your chest, your heart sevenfold of hate, disdain and grudges, then onto the wine of love, become a chalice, become a cup. A love that can regenerate our world. So until we see each other in Chartres, so much love to you. May you be held by the Great Mother. May you serve the Great Mother and the Great Union. Thank you.
Thank you, Banafshe. Thank you, Kala. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in Chartres.
So much love.
Bye for now.